and welcome back to Good Nightmare, a podcast where we have a special guest today. His name is Maud, he's my cat, and he is currently meowing at you to say hello and sniffing the microphone. Just as a heads up and little content warning, this episode does include a mention of suicide. So if you need to skip past certain parts of the story or the episode altogether, I totally understand. The tale of Edward Mordache has been making the rounds for over a century. His name is also cited as Edward Mordrake, but for the sake of this episode, we will keep it simple and refer to him as Edward Mordache. The story goes that Edward was a young man alive in the 1800s, and he was born with a rare anomaly. Edward was born with another face on the back of his head. The face was complete with eyes and mouth, but it was not able to see or speak out loud. It could, however, communicate with Mordache directly. It would tell him horrible things that would disturb Mordache to the point of sleeplessness and despair. The face was said to laugh when Mordache cried, and to sneer when Mordache was happy. This demonic face was intent on causing only distress and misery. Mordache, at his wits' end, requested, even pleaded on several occasions, to have someone remove the blight on the back of his head, but doctors refused, believing it was the work of evil and not wanting to face a possible curse themselves. Out of helplessness and a never quiet mind, legend goes that Mordache secluded himself in a room and completed suicide. The story of Mordache has since been presented in folklore as something nearing a factual account. There is even a photograph that is said to be that of Edward Mordache, where you can clearly see the face on the back of his head. I've uploaded this image to the show notes and to my social media if you would like to take a look. I first personally heard about this tale a few years ago. I can't remember who told it to me or where I might have read it, but I never really thought to question it. Neither did the authors of Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine, Dr. George M. Gould and Dr. David L. Pyle. Their non-fiction text, first published in 1896, included the tale of Edward Mordache, citing lay sources as their sources for the account's truthfulness. Their article on Mordache read as follows. One of the weirdest as well as the most melancholy stories of human deformity is that of Edward Mordache, said to have been an heir to one of the noblest peerages in England. He never claimed the title. However, he committed suicide in his 23rd year. He lived in complete seclusion, refusing the visits even of the members of his own family. He was a young man of fine attainments, a profound scholar, and a musician of rare ability. His figure was remarkable for its grace, and his face, that is to say, his natural face, was that of an Antinous. But upon the back of his head was another face, that of a beautiful girl, lovely as a dream, hideous as a devil. The female face was a mere mask, occupying only a small portion of the posterior part of the skull, yet exhibiting every sign of intelligence, of a malignant sort, however. It would be seen to smile and sneer while Mordache was weeping. The eyes would follow the movements of the spectator, and the lips would gibber without ceasing. No voice was audible, but Mordache avers that he was kept from his rest at night by the hateful whispers of his devil twin, as he called it, which never sleeps, but talks to me forever of such things as they only speak of in hell. No imagination can conceive the dreadful temptations it sets before me. For some unforgiven wickedness of my forefathers, I am knit to this fiend, for a fiend it surely is. I beg and beseech you to crush it out of human semblance, even if I die for it. Such were the words of the hapless Mordache to Manvers and Treadwell, his physicians. In spite of careful watching, he managed to procure poison, whereof he died, leaving a letter requesting that the demon face might be destroyed before his burial, lest it continues its dreadful whisperings in my grave. At his own request, he was interred in a waste place, without stone or legend to mark his grave. The article that I just read to you reads as fact, as it was taken at the time of publishing. Now that we're living in an age of information, it's becoming much more difficult to relay folklore as fact, where there's no scientific or credible backing. It was not difficult for people to confirm that the story of Mordache is, in fact, just a story. Alex Bose traced the source of the story back to an article written in 1895 by Charles Lowton Hildreth. Hildreth was an author of speculative fiction. The article he wrote at the time was written in a format to be presented as non-fiction. However, Hildreth also wrote in his article titled "The Wonders of Modern Science, Some Half-Human Monsters Once Thought to Be of the Devil's Brood," quite a wordy title, of a woman who had fish tails for legs, a being that was half man and half spider, and even a man named Jackass Johnny, who had the ears of a donkey. I had to include that one because it makes me laugh every time I have the humour of a 5-year-old. Now, while the story of Mordache may not be entirely true, if at all true, there have been at least 10 known cases of children born with what is known as a parasitic twin, where a twin does not entirely develop and instead is only partially formed and attached to the head of the fully developed twin. These cases have an incredibly low survival rate. There's also the chance, as suggested on Snopes, that it could have been a case of craniofacial duplication, where parts of the face's features, or in rare cases the full face, is duplicated on another area of the head. As for the supposed vintage photograph of Mordache himself, it appears that it's simply an edited photo of a wax sculpture that exists in Madame Tussauds in Germany, where a wax figure of a man is seated at a table where you can walk around him to see that he has another face on the back of his head. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a really fun one for me to explore, and in diving into it and the source of the original tale, I learnt some things about this story that I never knew before. This may or may not be new information to you, and I would love to hear from you if you have any thoughts on the case when you heard about Mordache for the first time, and whether you had any doubts then that it was real. Maud and I would like to say thank you for listening. I hope you didn't mind his meows and errant purring. You can catch us on social media at goodnightmare_s on Twitter or Instagram, or via email at goodnightmare_s@outlook.com. If you have time to rate or review the podcast, that is always so appreciated, and thank you so much to everyone who has done so far. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to hear more future episodes and be notified when I release an episode. And be sure to stay tuned for a promo from another podcast. Until next time, sweet dreams.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And I'm Jason Horton.
And we're the hosts of Ghost Town, a comedy podcast about all places abandoned, tragic, mysterious, haunted, and true crimey.
That's not a word. We cover all kinds of locations like
the Los Feliz Murder House,
an LA murder frozen in time, Action Park,
the world's most dangerous amusement park, JonBenet Ramsey's house, Woodstock 99, the Cecil Hotel, and the Black House.
Ooh, Satan. So pause the podcast you're currently listening to immediately and go subscribe to Ghost Town.
You can find us at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.